She moved through the house silently, almost like she didn't exist. For 2 whole years, nobody really saw her, until the most powerful guy in that house decided to follow her. What he found out at that public hospital would change not just her life forever, but his too, because sometimes the most invisible woman carries the strongest love in the world. And when that love is on the line, even pride doesn't stand a chance. Arthur Campbell was on the second-floor glass balcony when he saw Sarah Miller cross the mansion's garden, her bag clutched tight to her body. It was exactly 6:57 a.m. Like always, 2 years of work, not a single late day, not a single mistake. But there was something about that automatic, almost robotic way she moved that was starting to bother him. That morning, while he pretended to read and sipped his coffee, he noticed how worn out Sarah looked. Deep-set eyes, paler skin, slower steps. She hid it well, but he saw it. When he offered for her to sit and have coffee with him, Sarah declined with a polite smile and the same old line, "Thank you, Mr. Campbell. I still need to clean the library before 8. And that's where it happened. In that seemingly harmless refusal, that Arthur decided he was going to find out what she was hiding. Sarah Miller was 34 and carried a silence heavier than any broom. From day one in that house, she made it clear. She didn't want intimacy, just wanted to work. And work she did, with surgical precision, as if each task was a stitch in the world she was trying to hold together. Arthur hired her through a referral. There were never complaints, no excesses, but also never any real life. She spoke only when necessary, refused coffee, lunch, bonuses and kindnesses. She did everything perfectly, and left at the same time as if fleeing something her boss still couldn't understand. The first week, he thought it was just shyness, then coldness. But now, 2 years later, there was something more, something throbbing behind those increasingly dim eyes. That afternoon, while Sarah was organizing books in the library, a heavy volume slipped from the shelf. As she bent down, she leaned slowly on the table, as if her own body was giving up. Arthur noticed her trembling hands, her short breaths. She was exhausted, but instead of admitting it, she smiled faintly and said, "Just lack of sleep, sir. It'll pass." The next day, he found her leaning discreetly against the kitchen doorframe, eyes closed, too tired to even pretend she wasn't tired. And yet, when he offered her the lunch leftovers, Sarah refused with the same old phrase, "Thanks, I have food at home." But Arthur knew it was a lie. And for the first time, he also knew he needed to go beyond the polite question. He needed to understand why this woman insisted so much on disappearing. It was that night, watching Sarah leave through the back service entrance, head down, steps hurried, that he made a silent decision. The next day he would follow her, and he would see with his own eyes what she wouldn't say with any words. Sarah didn't want pity. Never did. She didn't wake up at 5 a.m. every day just to clean a luxury house. She did it to keep alive the only thing that still gave meaning to her life, her daughter Lily. The girl was 9 years old, and since she was 7, she'd been fighting something no child should ever know, leukemia. Sarah never talked about Lily at work. Only once, months ago, had she let slip, in a moment of distraction, that she had a daughter who loved to draw. Besides that, silence. A wall between her pain and the world. Sarah's dream, to see her daughter grow up, that's all. But for that, she needed money, and money didn't come easy when you were alone, a single mom, broke, and carrying the cost of a never-ending treatment on your back. That week, Arthur tried to talk. He offered a raise, 50% more, a full health plan, paid time off. Sarah froze. "I can't accept, Mr. Campbell." "Why?" "Because what I earn is already enough." It wasn't. He knew. She did too. But Sarah spoke with firmness, a kind of firmness that logic couldn't break down. The next night, Arthur couldn't sleep. He kept replaying her expression, the panic in her eyes facing his generosity, as if, instead of offering help, he'd put a gun to her dignity. That's when he remembered something. Once, A long time ago, he'd felt that too. The fear of looking weak. But Sarah, she didn't look weak. She looked like someone carrying the world with her hands tied. The next morning when she arrived, something was different. Her steps were shorter, her face more drawn. While cleaning the upstairs, she knelt to pick up a cloth and took too long to get up. Arthur watched everything in silence from behind his half-open office door. Something was wrong, very wrong. Sarah barely ate lunch. Once again she refused food. Once again she lied. And that late afternoon, when she grabbed her bag and hurried out onto the side street, Arthur followed her. Slowly, without her noticing. He followed for 2 blocks, then 2 more. He saw her get on the bus heading to the north side, and half an hour later, when she got off in front of an old, grey public hospital, he already knew. He knew he was about to discover the real reason behind so much resistance. And he also knew he might not be ready for what he was about to see. The hospital had stained walls, the smell of old disinfectant, and corridors so crowded that pain seemed to drip from the walls. Arthur kept his distance. He watched Sarah from afar, blended into the anonymous crowd. She walked quickly, like someone who knew every step, every shortcut between wards. She got into the elevator and pressed the 3rd floor button. He waited for the next one. He knew exactly what was there, pediatric oncology. He felt his stomach drop. In the hallway, he followed from a distance. He saw Sarah stop in front of one of the rooms, take a deep breath, and go in. Through the crack in the door, he saw what he would never forget. A little girl lying there, frail, with a pale face and thin hair. She was hooked up to an infusion pump, but even so, she smiled when she saw her mum. "Mommy, you came." Sarah knelt by the bed. "Of course I did, my love. I brought your drawing book and the juice you like." Her voice. It was different. There was no cold, precise employee. There was a mother melting with love. Arthur backed away, leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. The pain hit him like a punch. Sarah wasn't just tired. She was fighting every single day to keep her daughter alive, alone. And no one, absolutely no one, knew. Later, he saw her downstairs, in a makeshift restroom. On the floor, a thin mat. A backpack with clothes, a water bottle, a pack of crackers. Sarah settled into the corner by the wall and pulled out a notebook. She started writing down numbers, bills. He could see the calculations. $42 left. The medication cost $180 the next day. She took a small velvet box from her bag. Inside, a worn gold bracelet and a simple ring. She stared at the pieces for long minutes, as if they were materialized memories. Then she put them back and lay down. On the cold floor, in the dark, in the loneliness only a broken mother knows. Arthur left the hospital in silence. He sat in his car, but he couldn't start the engine. For 2 years that woman had walked past him, punctual, clean, discreet, and he had never asked who she really was. Now he knew. He knew Sarah wasn't just an efficient employee. She was an exhausted warrior. She was the kind of woman who would sell her most valuable possessions to buy one more day of hope for her daughter. That night, he didn't eat dinner, didn't sleep. He stood by the window, hands in his pockets, eyes empty, as if searching for an explanation in the silence of dawn. And at some point, perhaps close to 3 in the morning, he murmured to himself, "I'm going to help. Somehow, I will." Have you ever seen someone carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders and pretending everything was okay? Have you met someone like that, silent but with eyes that scream for help? If this part of the story touched you somehow, leave a yes in the comments. It's the simplest way to say, "I'm here too. I felt it too." The next morning, Arthur woke up differently. Not because of lack of sleep. Something inside him had shifted, as if a long-locked door had opened again. For years he had been immersed in goals, spreadsheets, meetings, always productive, always busy. But now, everything seemed small. He sat on the edge of his bed and stared at his reflection in the mirror. He didn't see a successful businessman. He saw a man who, even with everything, didn't know what to do with what he had. He remembered a name, a face. Henry, his son. He'd died at 6, a victim of a disease that even the best doctors couldn't stop. He did everything money could buy, but it wasn't enough. Sarah, on the other hand, was doing everything love could bear. And still, maybe it wasn't enough either. This difference hit him hard. She had nothing, and yet she kept trying, alone. There, that silent morning, Arthur understood. It wasn't just about charity. It wasn't about paying for a treatment or fixing a life. It was about being there, about looking at someone the world ignored and saying with his heart, "I see you," but how to offer help without hurting the only thing Sarah still had, her dignity. She wouldn't accept handouts. He knew that, so he started thinking of a way to enter that world without breaking down the door. A bridge, a gesture that didn't feel like a favor but respect. That day, upon arriving at his office, he called his accountant and asked, how much would it cost to support a 2-year oncology treatment for a child? The answer came quickly, but that's not what made him take a deep breath. It was what he felt when he hung up the phone. For the first time in a long time, Arthur had a reason to do something. Not for profit, but for love. Sarah was dusting the library shelf when she heard the door close behind her. Arthur was there. Serious. But there was no coldness in his gaze. There was something more, a quiet sadness laden with determination. "Sarah, I need to talk to you. Please, sit here." She hesitated, put down the cloth, wiped her hands on her pants, as she always did, before refusing any kindness. But she sat. "Yesterday I followed you," he said, direct. Sarah paled. Her body stiffened. "Mr. Campbell, calm down. I just needed to understand, and now I do." The silence that followed was unbearable. Arthur took a deep breath. "I saw your daughter. I saw where you sleep. I saw what you sacrifice. And I saw that you've been fighting alone. For too long." Sarah lowered her eyes. "I didn't want anyone to know. I know. That's why I'll get straight to the point. I want to help. With everything, the treatment, the exams, whatever it takes." She looked up instinctively. "No, Sarah. I can't accept. I need to do this on my own, out of pride, out of survival." Her answer disconcerted him. Sarah continued, "If I accept help, what's left of me? What am I going to tell my daughter? That I needed charity from my rich boss to keep her alive?" "It's not charity," he replied firmly. "It's a father's love. Because I already lost a son, Sarah, and if I can prevent you from going through that, I will." She stood still. "I don't want Lily to know," she whispered. "Then she won't know." Arthur stood, went to his desk, and picked up an envelope. "I'm giving you a raise, $8,000 a month. Formalized, new contract, expanded health plan. No one needs to know more than that." Sarah looked at the envelope, then at him. Her world was crumbling, but this time, in silence, from the weight that was leaving, not entering. "It has to be this way," she said. "She needs to believe her mother found a way." "And you did," he replied. "You are the strongest woman I've ever met." The following days were confusing for Sarah. She kept cleaning the house as always, but now, with a divided heart. She had accepted the help, yes, but she didn't accept the relief. With each payment, each cleared bill, she felt something corroding inside, as if she were betraying her own struggle. Arthur, on the other hand, remained respectfully present. He didn't treat her as a victim, nor as a heroine, just as a woman who deserved peace. But something was changing. He started visiting Lily at the hospital, discreetly, without warning. He brought books, fruits, comic books. He learned to braid her favorite doll's hair. And one day Lily asked, "Are you my mom's friend?" Arthur smiled. "Yes, I am. A special friend." The girl laughed. "You look like my dad." "Except my dad left when I got sick." Arthur swallowed hard. Sarah saw the scene from the doorway, unnoticed, and for the first time, she genuinely smiled. But the same day, at night, while writing numbers in an old notebook, fear returned. What if he gave up? What if one day he just disappeared from their lives? She had already lost everything once. She couldn't bear to lose again. The next day, she tried to pull away, avoid conversation, rebuild the wall. But Arthur noticed. "You're scared, aren't you? Not of you. Of myself. Of getting used to this. Of thinking I can trust." "You can." Sarah crossed her arms. "What if you get tired? If you get sick of helping?" He answered without hesitation. "Then you can fire me. But until then, I'm staying." That night, Sarah cried, but this time not from pain, from a relief so deep it hurt, like someone beginning to unlearn survival and slowly relearning how to live. The day was warm when Lily received the news she'd been waiting months for: partial remission. The treatment was working. Tests showed significant improvement, and for the first time in a long time, she could smile without pretending. Sarah almost dropped to her knees in the doctor's office. Arthur held her arm firmly, and in that touch there was more than gratitude. There was something no word in the world could translate: commitment. Leaving the hospital, Lily walked between them, a hand in each of theirs. In the center, like the heart that united them. In the car, Sarah spoke softly. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me," he replied. "Just let me stay close, that's all." The following months were like a slow spring. Lily gained weight. Her hair started to grow. She started drawing with more vibrant colors. Sarah started sleeping 1 or 2 nights a week at her own house again. And Arthur, he started visiting the hospital even when he didn't need to, just to see Lily, just to hear Sarah laugh. Her laughter was rare, but when it came, it seemed to cleanse the world. One morning, after a session of exams, Sarah called Arthur aside. She asked, "Today if you're family." He was silent. "And what did you say?" "I said you were whatever she wanted you to be." Arthur looked at her with eyes full of emotion. "And what do you want me to be, Sarah?" The question hung between them. There was no longer boss and employee, just two souls who found each other in the ruins and decided to rebuild together. Days later, Lily decided for them. "When I leave the hospital, can we all live together?" Sarah fell silent. Arthur smiled. "If your mum wants to, I'd love to." And Sarah, with tears in her eyes, replied, "Yes." In the following weeks, Arthur bought a simple house with a backyard and 3 rooms lit by the morning sun. There, not just a new routine, but a new home was born. And on a Saturday afternoon, while Lily planted daisies in the newly prepared flower bed, Sarah approached with a box in her hands. "I want to show you something." Inside were the old test results, the bills, the rejected donor letters, and on top of everything, a thin gold bracelet, the same one she had almost sold months earlier. "This was all I had, and you gave me everything I needed." Arthur took the bracelet. He placed it on her wrist gently and said, "You didn't need me, Sarah. You needed someone to say, 'You are not alone.'" She cried. He did too, and in that moment, with the daisies blooming between them, they knew nothing would ever be the same, because now they were family. Months later, Sarah looked out the window of their new home as Lily ran through the garden, healthy, light, free. The daisies were tall now. They colored the yard as if the whole world had decided to bloom with them. Arthur was in the kitchen, making simple coffee, as he did every Sunday. Sarah approached silently and wrapped her arms around his waist. "Do you still think you saved me?" she whispered. "No," he replied with a smile. "I was the one who was saved, because it was there, in that quiet, courageous woman, and in that fragile child who never lost her light, that he found a purpose again, a new life, a new family." Soon after, together, they created the Lily's Hope Foundation, a social project aimed at helping single mothers facing childhood cancer without support. Sarah became a role model. Arthur, the invisible investor who supported the dream out of the spotlight. And Lily, the happiest ambassador anyone could imagine. But the lesson that remained wasn't about philanthropy or miracles. It was about presence, because what changed everything wasn't the money. It was the choice to see someone the world ignored and to extend a hand without taking away their ground. The story of Sarah and Lily isn't just theirs. It's about all the silent battles that exist around us. about the pride that is often the only thing left, and about how dignity, when respected, can blossom into something immense. Maybe you know someone like that, or maybe you are that someone. And the lesson Sarah learned and left us is this: we don't need to save the whole world. But if you can truly see just one person, that changes everything. If this story touched you in any way, leave a like. It's the simplest way to say, this message was worth it, and I love knowing who's on the other side of the screen. Tell me in the comments, what city or country are you watching from? It's incredible to see how far these stories reach. If you believe in the power of stories like this, subscribe to the channel now. We're just getting started, and every new subscription gives me strength to continue. Don't leave yet. Choose one of the 2 stories I've left on the screen. See you in the next video.